Hello everyone, ex-Walk Hill Bethelite here. And I was watching a show called Immigration Nation. It is on Netflix. It's a series called Immigration Nation on Netflix. And what that show brings to light that a lot of people weren't aware of, as far as immigration and people trying to come into the U.S. Or people somehow already being in the U.S. Is the breaking up of families. And you can probably already tell where I'm going with this. The breaking up of families is something that a lot of people just weren't aware of, that oftentimes takes place when you have someone trying to come to the U.S. and they bring their son, their daughter, or whoever they bring with them, and they end up being separated, not knowing when they're going to see their kids again. You see ICE officers coming to people's residence and will arrest, oftentimes in this show, the dad. And literally, that family may not see each other again at all. And you see the kids crying because their family members being taken away. You see dads crying because they haven't seen their kids. If you watch this show is a tearjerker. It's hard not to feel for people who are being separated from their family. In the show also highlights how important family is, because people are willing to risk their lives trying to cross the desert and do all kinds of stuff in order to be with their family. There's one guy that was walking through the desert for I think about 15 days and was eating cactus and had the cactus needles all in his mouth. And when some officers pulled up to him, the first thing that came out of his mouth is he's going to be with his family. He was in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, I believe, and he asked the officers, "Where's California? I got family in California." He had no idea how far away he was from California, but that was the primary thing on his mind. Hadn't drank any water in a long time. The only reason he had water is because some passerby gave him some water. First thing on his mind was family. That's how important family is. So when you watch this show and you see that you have grown men crying as a result, the crazy thing is some of them were being deported, and the primary thing that was on their mind was their family. Hey, where's my son? Where's my daughter? When am I going to see him again? There's a guy that was working and living outside trying to make the money that he needed so that he could come and see his family. And he said he didn't even, expect a hug. He didn't even expect to talk to him. He just wanted to see his family from far off. That was just his goal. He would wake up at 4 a.m., sleeping outside on cardboard all night, picking cucumber or something to that effect, in order to try to make money. And the primary thing on a lot of these people's minds was their family. I'll give you one more example. There was a guy who immigration was called on him. He was like 20 something or something to that effect. He had lived in America for like 13 years. Or 15 years, or something to that effect. Basically, his family brought him over when he was a kid. When he was a kid, so young, he didn't know what was going on. And he ends up getting pulled over and, you know, didn't have his documentation. And so you have a kid that grew up in America being deported. And he had a conversation with one of the officers, and one of the things that was brought up is, hey, you could have stayed, you could have went back and then worked on your paperwork to come, you know, you could have went back to Mexico and then worked on your paperwork or something like that to come back to America. And he was like, would you be away from your family for 10 years? He was like, that would take 10 years. Would you be away from your family for 10 years? He asked the officer that, and the officer couldn't answer. He gave one of those answers without giving an answer. Is, hey, I haven't been in that situation, so I can't say what I would do. No, you know, if you were in that situation, you ain't leaving your family for 10 years to go work on some paperwork. So some of those people were in the situation they were in because of family. They don't want to leave their family to go work on paperwork for years and years, or go somewhere and wait for years and years. The biggest problem with all of that is, to do that, you have to be away from your family for years. So this show highlights the huge problem of separating families. And you have a religious organization in America who separates families using religious belief. If people believe in that religious organization does the very thing that you see in this video. Except, of course, people aren't being deported, but that religious organization rips fathers from their kids. I talked to people on the phone who hadn't seen their kids, their grandkids, in a long time. Mothers who got pulled away from their kids because, you know, they won't comply with that religion. That religion wants people to comply. That religion wants to control people's lives. Jehovah's Witnesses. That religion wants to control people's lives. If you were to begin associating with Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not too long before you realize, hey, if I don't do what these people tell me, they're all going to turn their backs on me. It's not too long before you start to figure that out. The problem is when they start to separate families. The problem is when someone doesn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness. They're in America. They want to be able to pick their own religion like they should be able to. Well, that religion then will, quote unquote, disfellowship. What is disfellowship? Discontinuing fellowship. Everybody that's in the religion discontinues fellowship. It don't matter what the religious ties or the family ties are. So a father decided he doesn't want to be involved in the Jehovah's Witnesses because they have so many problems with pedophilia, and they allowed it to go on for years. Well, that father is then disfellowship, which means his wife, who's still in the religion, oftentimes there's divorces that happen. They typically actively try to make sure that the kid stays with the relative who is in that cult because they want the kid to grow up in the cult. The exact same thing, the separating of families, and it's going on in America with people who are legal American citizens. That's one of the biggest things about that cult, the Jehovah's Witnesses. They operate like ICE. And that if you don't comply with them, you have people coming to your door. In America, you got people coming to your door to get you to comply with their religion. Hey, we haven't seen you attend the meetings that we told you to attend in a while. You get people come to your house. We haven't seen you attending the meetings that we've asked you to attend. And then they start an inquiry at your house. It's almost like ICE coming to someone's house asking for paperwork. Show me your documentation. Well, for Jehovah's Witnesses, complying with what they're told to do is essentially how they document. I'm paying attention to traffic, so people who think you can't do a video and pay attention to traffic, some people might not be able to, but I ain't hitting nothing. Back to the point, when those ICE officers come to your door and they ask for documentation, you don't have it, they will split up their family. They may have legal reasons to do so, but they will split up that family. Well, with Jehovah's Witnesses, when they send those elders to your door, hey, we have not seen you at the meetings, complying with Watchtower is your documentation. We haven't seen you doing the things we asked you to do. We haven't seen you out knocking on doors, passing out our magazines. We haven't seen you at the meetings. When you don't have a reason or an answer to that, or you're not going to comply, the next step is to set up a judiciary hearing where the whole point is to disfellowship you from, break you up from your friends, break you up from your families. As unbelievable as it may be, when mainstream society watches Immigration Nation on Netflix, the exact same separating of families is what goes on in Jehovah's Witnesses. There's people who will kick their kids out because their kids don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness. So there's fathers who, they're way more worried about looking good and getting a title in that religion. That religion will take your title away if your kids aren't obeying the religion. So that father will, kick his own kids out. Won't talk to his own kids if his kids get disfellowship. I got family where I've seen it. Where I've seen a relative not talk to their own kid in decades, have zero relationship with their kids, so obviously they have no relationship with their kids' kids. Like, it goes down through the generations. This don't just affect the family member, the immediate family member, it affects their kids. Their kids then can't have a relationship with the other relatives that are inside that cult, because the cult broke up the family. Hey, if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're splitting up families here. As much as it upset the American public for the Trump administration and ICE to be so forward and breaking up so many families, the same indignation, the same anger should arise when an organization in America is doing the same thing, the exact same thing, to families in America that has nothing to do with them breaking any legal laws. That organization, religious organization, can make up its own rules and then start punishing people who don't abide by it in the most extreme way possible. Some of the people that cross the border, albeit illegally, they figured, hey, I may be deported if this doesn't work out. And they probably have a resolve in their mind to be okay with that. Okay, if I get caught, I get deported. The problem is overkill. Well, okay, well, I'm gonna take your son and your daughter away and split y'all up, and then deport one family member and keep some other like that. The splitting up of families is where even the people crossing the border is like, okay, that's overkill. You don't have to do all that. See, so it's inhumane is what it is. It's viewed as inhumane because it is inhumane. Well, then it's just as inhumane when Watchtower does it. It's just as inhumane when it happens to people who are legal citizens because some religion decides, hey, we're going to create rules, and these are rules that you need for salvation. One of those rules is separation of families. If somebody don't do what we tell them to do, you can't talk to them anymore, regardless of your family affiliation. You can't talk to them anymore. Or if they live in the same house, you have to limit how much you talk to them, which is obviously, in the minds of the religion, it paints them as an evil person, and they're going to try to get them out of the house, probably. So, I mean, it's not probably. There's people that are going to try to get them out of the house because now the religion is painting them as demons or something. Like, as ridiculous as that is, it happens, and it happens in America. And the biggest thing about the show, Immigration Nation, what appeals to the public, the strongest argument they have that affects, the minds of the American people that watch that show is the breaking up of the family. A lot of Americans aren't going to be that concerned about what's going on in some other country. They're going to say, hey, let them deal with that in that other country. That's going to be the standpoint of some people, is that all these people's problems in all these other countries aren't going to become America's problem. Okay, but they don't have, the same people don't really have an answer for splitting up the families. It's just not necessary. You know what I mean? It's just not necessary to keep some people here and then send one relative away and just all this other stuff. There's no real answer morally for that because that's inhumane treatment. So Watchtower should not be able to split up families in the name of religion. That should be so disgusting that the American people just don't put up with it. Watchtower, you guys can have religion, but you guys can't go to such extremes that you're just splitting up families. And causing that to be a rule of salvation. To earn your salvation, you must pass out magazines. Everybody knows Jehovah's Witnesses knock on doors and pass out magazines. They don't know that's part of their salvation. To earn salvation, you better pass out these magazines from door to door for so many hours a month and track those hours per month. To earn salvation, if anybody doesn't follow all these rules that we set up, we will split up your family, called disfellowshipping. Disfellowship you from that family member. Friends, family, doesn't matter. So comment down below, let me know what you think. Watch Immigration Nation, and you literally see a show that was put on Netflix because breaking up families is so bad. It's so bad. that people can't even rationalize doing it to somebody who ain't even an American that's trying to come over the border. You can't even rationalize doing it to them. The show is going to make you tear up because it's happening to somebody that's not even an American citizen, per se. Well, how much more upset should you be if it's happening to American citizens done by the Jehovah's Witness religious cult in America? A regular, something that happens regularly there. People right now, as we speak today, cannot speak to their relatives or associate with them freely, or don't have no real relationship with them at all, because that cult, part of the works of salvation is knocking on doors, passing out our magazines, and breaking up your family. So 937-789-4029. We'll discuss it. X Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.